screen. I'm going to take over the screen sharing and I will share my slides. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
All right, great. So far I only have 4 participants. If anyone just, chimes in, just, shoot it in the group chat, please, if that's fine. All right, guys, everyone, welcome. Good evening, Division 19, National Chapter. Hopefully everyone comes sooner or later. I'd appreciate that. Anyway, I am Captain Soria. I'm an active duty Air Force psychology resident currently. In addition to that, like I said, I'm a psychology intern. So I'm still training in school as well as my internship military residency. My background primarily resides in military experiences. So for example, I've worked at a VA clinic for 1 year. And at that clinic, I was working under a PTSD specialty clinic. So I have direct experience administering the prolonged exposure therapeutic protocol. In addition to that, I also use the STAIR protocol, skills training and effective and interpersonal regulation. I also have exposure to CPT, cognitive processing therapy. These therapies will likely be a definite interest of yours in the near future. And I rattle these off just to get you guys primed to thinking of, whether you're interested in VA setting or a military setting. In addition to that, I have worked with first responders, so law enforcement as well as firefighters. Those populations have definitely been my interest for the past number of years. So if anyone else have interest in those populations, please feel free to talk about that. And before I really get into things, I would like to make this meeting somewhat informal. I understand that it's a student, platform. So I think it would be a great opportunity for everyone to essentially be engaged and participate, ask questions, give me your feedback, give me some of your experiences that you've encountered. For the most part, I'll just be talking about my experiences as coming into a psychology program as a psychology trainee, and then transitioning into an active duty captain in the Air Force. That road has been long and it has been tough, and I appreciated every mentor I've had throughout my long journey. So I hope that I could be that mentor for you too. So here's our connection. Oops. Before I move further, I want to explicitly state this. The views expressed are those of Samuel Soria Jr. and do not reflect the official policy or position of the United States Air Force, Department of Defense, or the United States government. So I say that so that way, that puts us all at ease, right? So I'm not endorsing anything for the US Air Force, and I want you guys to be at ease so that way you could also ask questions and participate. Before I move into the next slide, I wanted to get a hold of what our current population here, like our student body, what you guys are interested in. I know Nicholas, but Ben and Victoria, are you two interested in pursuing a military career? You can come offline if that's fine with you.
Yeah, so nice to meet you guys. I'm Ben Meese. I am currently the secretary and co-military fitness officer for the Alliant International University San Diego chapter of SAMP, and currently applying to be the Division 19 rep for our campus for this upcoming year. I am interested in military populations. I'm interested in both the HPSP and a career at the VA. I have experience working with homeless veterans through the VASH program, which I provided services to them through a private not-for-profit. We managed several VASH buildings for about 3 years. Really enjoy working with that population. Just went to the Veterans Village San Diego Community Service Outreach event the previous weekend. And yeah, just curious, wanting to work more with this population. I currently do biofeedback and health psych at Sharp General Hospital doing in their pain management clinic. So kind of taking a health psych, neuropsych, biofeedback approach to both, physical disability and mental illness.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing. Sounds like you're at the right place. Victoria, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Victoria De Hoyos. I'm a first lieutenant, actually also in the Air Force, and I'm at Uniformed Services University. So I'm actually really interested to hear your experience at residency. Are you at Andrews, Wright-Patterson, Lackland?
I'm currently at Wright-Patterson. Whoops.
I'm really, because I think that's my top choice. So I'm really interested in hearing how that's going for you and the things that you're doing there. And I've always been passionate about working with this population. I'm actually at Andrews right now for an externship or a practica. I'm in the third year of my program. Okay. And I'm also at Walter Reed working in the oncology clinic. So okay. It's a real treat. So thank you so much for taking the time to come speak with us.
Of course, thank you for joining us. Athena, if you don't mind coming offline and just talking about your experiences and your interests, whether it's the VA track or the military track.
Sure. So I'm Athena Jones. I'm currently an intern at the VA in Loma Linda in California. And so I'm interested in working with veterans. I've done like some PTSD work and different things like that, but I'm not too sure like where I want to focus yet. And I'm going to be on SPREV, so I'm getting involved there and with everything there.
Okay, great. So this might be actually Nicholas. Could you also describe, do a little introduction for yourself, please?
Yes. So I'm Nicholas. I'm starting my second year at Nova Southeastern University. Prior Army, plan on going back into the Army using the HPSP. My areas of interest are neuro, health, and rehabilitation psychology, because my passion is PTSD and traumatic brain injuries. And I fell in love with this new passion of using equine assisted therapy to help active duty and veterans be able to manage their depression and anxiety.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm hopeful that this presentation and this discussion amongst us five would really help you guys hone in on what direction you want to lean towards. So for example, I know Ben and Athena, you guys are both interested in either the VA track or the military track. I'm hopeful that me talking about my experiences will help you narrow down your scope. I'll talk about the good, the bad, and the neutral. Does anyone have any questions so far? Great. So I want to open up talking about why. Why are we interested in working with the veteran population? Why are we interested in working with the active duty population? And the reason I bring up this question is because this question has always been at the top of every list when you're doing interviewings. So for example, when I interviewed for HPSP, they essentially were asking why. Why did I want to pursue an HPSP scholarship program, essentially, right? When I moved on to OTS, they asked the same question. Why do you want to become an officer for the United States Air Force? Even now, during military residency, they're still asking why. Why do you want to be here? Why do you belong here? So this question was extremely difficult for me to answer because at every stage of my career as a student, it almost always has changed for better or worse, but it kept me on track. I'll talk about my why coming into HPSP first. HPSP I saw was a great opportunity to finally join the armed forces after chasing it for so many years. So truth be told, I've been chasing the military for a number of years. It wasn't just, all of a sudden I wanted to be part of the military. All the other incentives, so for example, the financial benefits was a second thought. My real why was over here on the right-hand side. Let me retract a little bit. These two photos are the front of on the left-hand side, that's the front of my OTS manual. The OTS stands for Officer Training School. And on the right-hand side, it's the back end of my manual. And I showcase this because it's been incredibly meaningful for me throughout my whole OTS training. This is actually wrapped up in clear tape, so that way it didn't become destroyed or degraded because of all the sweat, the rain, and so forth. But I wanted to really highlight the words on the right-hand side. And so I wrote down resilience, challenges, and the nitty-gritty. During our first week at OTS, our colonel, our commandant, was essentially doing the same speech, the same discussion. Ask yourself why. Why do you want to be here? Why do you want to go through these activities? Why do you want to be an officer for the United States? Resilience has always been a huge interest of mine when I think about the military populations. To be honest with you, the military population has always seemed to be a resilient population for me, and they actually were the ones who motivated me to become more resilient, to become better than the person I was before. They were my higher calling. They gave me the sense of a higher purpose. And I enjoyed the challenges. I enjoyed challenging myself because I wasn't always good at, X, Y, and Z. But I thought, the military was my light at the end of the tunnel. They showed me hope, and it was my turn to give back to those who served and to those who inspired me throughout, my childhood, my adolescence, and now my adulthood. And at the very bottom, Samantha Joan Vance, that's my fiance, and she's been an incredible support. And I've been, I think it's important for me to mention her because without the support of your loved ones, your family members, or your friends, I would find this extremely difficult. So those are my reasons why I joined. And I don't think it stops there. I think another reason why I joined is to help lead individuals like yourselves, because I could see all four of you as future leaders, and everyone else who's watching this offline, I could see everyone here as future leaders. And I hope to be the inspiration that you need to continue forward. Does anyone have any questions on that? Thanks for listening about my why. So the overview, I'll be talking about the HPSP program. HPSP stands for Health Profession Scholarship Program. And then I'll move on talking about my internship application process. I'll be talking about officer training school rather in depth. And finally, my military residency at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base located in Ohio. So to kick off, here's my timeline from essentially entering grad school into applying for HPSP and finally going off to military residency. So I just want to highlight a few things here. I actually entered grad school in 2018. So it took me about 2 years to reach the Air Force. And the reason I say that is because I applied to every branch out there, and I applied to Air Force during my third year, and I successfully secured Air Force. And then commissioning took a couple months. So you see from May to December, it was just dead time, so to speak. Commissioned in December, and that's when things really kicked off. You don't have too much time in between commissioning and I'm sorry, that's about a year. You don't have too much time from internship application and internship match. So in between the internship application and internship match, that's when you are being interviewed by numerous sites and so forth. And what I really want to highlight here is the importance of outreach or communicating with your supervisors. What I did as a student, as an HPSP recipient, I actually reached out to every mentor at each base. So for example, I spoke to the program directors at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, at Malcolm Grow, as well as Wolford Hall. I'm not sure if everyone else did the same thing or took the same initiative, but my purpose was to keep constant communication with them so they know where I'm at as far as my training, and they know where they could be rather more comforted that I am definitely interested in continuing this track. Because just because you're an HPSP recipient, yes, you're part of that contract, but there's a lot more to be done before you actually step into uniform. Officer training school kicked off almost immediately after internship match, and that lasted about a month to a month and a half or so. And currently I'm over here, residency 2022. Shortly after, come February, that's when we start looking at our assignment list. The assignment list is essentially the list that we're able to apply towards for our first assignment. So we are expected to spend approximately 2 to 4 years at our first assignment following our residency. Does everyone track that? Or am I a little confusing here? Great.
Just a question, because sometimes we get people who ask about HPSP.
Yes.
Where did you go to apply? Like, where is this application? How did you even start the process?
Yes. So the process for me began actually networking with a ton of people. If you look on the Air Force website, you could Google Air Force HPSP, and they have a general page that has information on HPSP. I'm not too sure if they have a contact for an HPSP recruiter, and I'm glad you brought that up, Lieutenant De Hoyos. Did I say that right? Perfect. I would definitely start reaching out to recruiters around this time of year if you're interested in it for next year. It's particularly for Air Force, it was definitely difficult to find a recruiter because they're regional. So my recruiter was actually located in Orlando, Florida, which was approximately 3 hours away. So I actually never met this individual in person, but we communicated via email and FaceTime and so forth. So for Air Force specifically, I would start reaching out now, talk to a general recruiter and tell them you want an HPSP recruiter, because it's an entirely different process. As for the other branches, I think it might be a little easier to find a recruiter. I didn't have too much trouble finding Navy or Army. However, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's good to know that it's a specific type of recruiter.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You got it. And the reason why it's a specific type of recruiter is because it's an entirely different process, and they have more hoops to jump through than other recruiters. So for example, I never took the ASVAB. Instead, they looked at my transcript, or they look at my training and so forth. They ask for my transcripts or my curriculum from school. So you just got to go back and forth. Anyway, following February, we find out where we land in May of, that should be 2023 actually. And then our first assignment finally kicks off at 2023, August. Any questions about the timeline? Great. So jumping into the Health Profession Scholarship Program. So it's a highly competitive program that's available for nearly every medical doctor you can think of, or allied health. As psychologists or psychology trainees, we fall into allied health, pharmacists, optometrists, clinical psychologists, public health officers. But you also see social workers. For example, I actually work with a few social workers and those kind of professions. Air Force, this is all based on the website, by the way. Air Force offers a 1 to 2 year scholarship that covers all the tuition, required fees, textbooks, materials, and a monthly stipend. Now, the tuition is entirely covered, so you don't need to worry about that. The textbooks, required fees, they legitimately take care of everything. Textbooks and materials like that, you're generally reimbursed, so you'll pay up front, and then you send over the documents, like your curriculum, for example, or your syllabus that states that you require this textbook, and then you'll send them over receipts that you paid for them. And I think you sent over a couple more items, but that's how the reimbursement process works. And it takes a couple of weeks to a couple of months before you finally get your money back. But I've never had any issues so long as I've had all the paperwork in order. And then the monthly stipend is, in my opinion, pretty generous as a student. It's approximately $1,250 biweekly. So you can expect around $2,500 a month. I don't know if it's changed, but that's supposed to essentially help with your living costs, so apartments, for example, or food and so forth. I will state that it's important that you understand for every year of scholarship you obtain, that equals a year of active duty service that you're committing to. But the kicker is, no matter what contract you choose or secure, the 1 year or 2 year scholarship, you'll end up serving a minimum of 3 years. And I don't know if it's general for across all scholarships, but there also is IRR, individual ready reserve commitment. So I actually have a 5-year IRR commitment on top of my 3 years active duty. So that's essentially an 8-year contract, right? The Air Force Health Profession Scholarship Program is highly competitive. From my understanding, in 2020, there's only 6 recipients awarded nationwide. That's across the whole country. And I was one of them. I'm definitely honored to be one of the recipients. And I will tell you, after meeting them in person at OTS, they are incredible people, and the competitiveness cannot be understated. So I want to talk about some things that make you competitive. I'm sure everyone has questions about, what makes you competitive here. I think what makes you competitive, or at least in my experience, is definitely showcasing your interest in the military population, whether that's chasing VA clinical experiences or doing veteran outreach programs or events. Those are all highly sought after. In addition to that, taking on webinars or extra training, like I think there's online courses on cognitive processing therapy or prolonged exposure and so forth. I think they want to see that kind of initiative, because they're not only looking for solid clinicians or solid individuals of character, but they're also looking for an individual who could take initiative and could act like a leader or potentially lead in the near future. Does anyone have any questions on that? Nope, we're all good.
I have a question in terms of competitiveness.
Yes, please shoot away.
How much would you say that a military-focused dissertation weighs in to the overall application?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up and asking that question. I think it weighs in a lot. It's valued. Research in military is highly valued. And more importantly, if you could actually disseminate your research, like at a local conference or APA conference and so forth, that would look very, very good. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay, great. Any other questions here?
Quick question. In terms of, you said that you would interview with people, and you said you reach out to the recruiter to get in contact. Do you interview with the recruiter? Do you have multiple rounds of interviews? Who all do you talk to?
So this whole, that's a great question. The recruiter, their primary job, from my understanding, or at least my own experience, they're just pushing your paperwork, your package is what they call it, your HPSP package, to Big Air Force. Once Big Air Force has it, that's when you start interviewing for HPSP. So I interviewed with one active duty clinical psychologist at the time. He was actually one of the program directors at one of the sites. I only interviewed with him, and it was, at the time, it was during COVID. So it was just, I think, FaceTime. I think we used FaceTime or Zoom. But it was about a 2-hour interview, and that was very, very exhausting, and yeah, it was exhausting, completely exhausting, because you really got to pour yourself into that process. So again, I want to emphasize, during that interview, I had no idea what I was walking into. I thought I would be talking about my research and my clinical experiences, but he actually wanted to see more. He wanted to see my commitment into potentially becoming an Air Force officer. So he would ask me questions like, essentially replicating my why, like, why do you want to be an officer? Why do you want to be an officer for the Air Force opposed to Navy or opposed to Army and so forth? And you've really got to have a solid understanding of your own purpose and your own passion. Any other questions?
Sorry, just one more. When you say it was a program director, do you mean of one of the internship sites?
Yes. I don't know if it's always like that. I might have just had him, but yes, he was an actual program director. that was leading one of the internship sites. Yep. Moving forward. So the actual internship application for APIC or APIC, however which way you want to pronounce it. For me, again, this is my experience because I was HPSP. I only applied to 5 sites. That's a total of the 3 Air Force training sites and 2 VA sites. And the reason I only applied to 5 is because, well, I'm obligated to apply to the Air Force sites. And the 2 VA sites, I felt comfortable applying to them. And more importantly, just because you're an HPSP recipient, that does not mean you're guaranteed a slot into one of these Air Force training sites. So they recommend, or at least read between the lines that you probably should apply to a number of sites in addition to the Air Force training sites. Now, what I recommend here for just the general APIC application is to start reaching out to program directors. I took that initiative. I actually shot out an email and asked if they could have some, set aside a few minutes. I would ask for a 15-minute phone call just so I could ask questions informally outside of the interview process. And my feedback was, I think they liked it. I scored 2 out of 3 or 4. I didn't apply to too many. And the sites that I didn't hear anything back from, I didn't end up applying to them at all. But the sites that I did have a conversation and discussion with, I think it really showed my interest in them. And I think it brought my name up amongst their staff members. Again, you want to show initiative. And I did the same exact thing with the Air Force training site. So by the time I actually started interviewing formally for these sites, they already knew who I was, and they already know what I'm all about. And one important takeaway here is that the Air Force, at least for the Air Force training sites, they all communicate with each other, right? So it's you might have heard the Air Force is a very small world, or just like the military is. I think all program directors are likely to communicate with each other. So take that as you will. But I think it's a good idea to start reaching out. Now, the cohort size, specifically for Wright-Patterson, we have one of the smaller cohorts as well as Malcolm Grow. These 2 sites have, currently this year, we have 4 each, but I think it's a maximum of 6 individuals, whereas Wolford Hall has a maximum of 12 individuals, but I think they have 10 this year. So you might be wondering, why is there 2 individuals missing at each site? I want to state that I think that happens because Air Force will not pick up anyone just to fill in a slot. They don't just choose, recipients, or they don't just choose applicants based on needing to fill a slot in. They want high quality individuals with high motivation and high drive. Any questions on that? Great. Why did I put civilian internship sites? Oh, yeah, I already spoke about my VA applications. I only applied to 2 VA settings, interviewed at both, and I think it went really well. However, I didn't rank them as my top sites. But I'll talk about the differences between the HPSP stipend, VA stipend, and also the military residency stipend. Because this is where we start thinking about, finally making some money, right? So HPSP stipend is, yes, you get approximately $2,500 a month. I'm sure USAF is a little probably higher or the same. The VA pay, if I'm not mistaken, I think nationwide it's on average between 27 to 28K annually. And based on this, by the way, this is all on the program brochures, so I'm not just lying over here. Wolford Hall, they reckon about, I think, close to 90 annually, or maybe like 88,000. Malcolm Grow should be about 90,000, and Wright-Patterson should be about 74 to 75,000. So you could see, compared to a VA setting, again, a high end would be about 28,000. That's a significant difference, right? So that might, I think for a lot of people, that's a huge incentive to pursue a military residency. but I'd caution everyone to slow down and look at the broader picture, because you will be making a lot of sacrifices. I don't think the military is the easiest internship site. There's definitely ups and downs, and I definitely don't think the pay alone is worth committing X amount of years for a career with the armed forces. Again, I think it's important for you to follow your passion and to really chase what you want. Any questions? Great. So officer training school, I really wanted to dig in here. I know I kept on talking about the difficulty of joining the military, and this is really where it showcased officer training school. It's only a month and a half or so long. Some people, you might have heard a little bit about it. It might not be as difficult for others as it was for me, but there are a number of reasons why. So as psychology trainees, you're generally coming in as one of the older students, not only as an age, but also as in clinical experiences and program wise. Basically, if you're coming in as a psychology trainee, you're at the tail end of your program. You are essentially, after your training, whether it's for Army, Navy, or Air Force, after your officer training, you're taken off into your residency, your military residency. So you're at the tail end of things. Phase one, there's 4 phases of officer training school. Phase one is entirely indoctrination. So you will be immersed into an incredible training environment, but it's incredibly stressful, exhausting, immersive, exhausting in terms of physicality, mental abilities, and emotional abilities. I think I've never been tested like this before, and I think I've learned a ton about teamwork, discipline, standardization, and leadership. These are qualities, these are concepts that I'll take on forever with me. And it's definitely a real thing in the military, not only at this training site, but also at military residency site. Any questions on phase one? Great. Phase two is when you start developing these concepts, right? So I want to talk about leadership. Officer training school is almost, I want to say they spend about 80% developing leadership. So you're going to have plenty of opportunities to develop leadership skills, whether it's as an academic officer or a research officer or a safety officer. But the one position that really stuck out, not only because I chose it first, but it's a flight leader. I think this is an incredible experience for anyone to go ahead and volunteer for, but know what you're getting yourself into. So in terms of leadership, I think this showcases and also puts you in a position where you will be tested continually. You're expected to lead a ton of professionals, right? So at officer training school, everyone is going to be an officer eventually, whether they're a second lieutenant now or a first lieutenant or another captain. Regardless, you're going to be expected to lead them. And then when you compound that with the fact that they're going to be medical doctors or dentists or physician assistants, they're at the top of their chain, right? So academically, they're at the top of the chain, and also structurally, as an officer, not quite at the top of the chain, but they're definitely highly respected. And then you compound that with the emotional stress, the physical stress, and the mental stress. I recommend being a flight leader because it will show you who you are. I recommend any leadership position because it will show you who you are. It will really let you know whether or not, I think it will let you know whether or not you're cut out for something like this or if you really want it. I spoke about academics and physical prowess. They expect you to be in tip-top shape. The physicality in the military is a real thing. You don't necessarily need to be 8% body fat or anything like that, but they expect you to be able to meet standards. If you don't meet standards, it's not just you're failing, you're also failing your team. And you'll find that in team exercises that it's pretty evident, and it could be, exhausting, not only for yourself, but for the team. So you really got to be on top of things and stay balanced between academics, your physicality, your leadership abilities, and so forth. And not to mention keeping relations with your family. My experience at OTS, I had a high difficulty communicating with my family members. I didn't talk to my immediate family back at home in California for the whole month. I would text here and there, maybe like a couple texts a week, but that's about it. But I would talk to my fiance every night, and that was incredibly challenging, just because there's a communication difference between, she's in a civilian life and I'm immersed in a military training site. So finding balance between those two settings and knowing when to I guess compromise would be a skill I think is very important, not only relationally, but also, moving forward during your practice. Because after all, all these individuals that we'll be seeing, they're human after all. They're not just military. They're civilians also. Application, you will be putting a lot of these leadership skills in play. The leadership reaction course is probably one of the highlights of OTS. It's essentially every person in your flight will have a chance to lead a team of, I want to say 8 individuals into some kind of like obstacle course, and you either succeed or you don't. So that's where they really want to see you have command presence, right? So the way you talk, the way you stand, the way you gesture, or the way you command verbally to others, they're assessing that. And then transition into graduation. They make it a point that just because you're graduating officer training school, it doesn't stop there. Your training will continue on to military residency and essentially continue on forever, right? So you will always, I quote, you will always be on parade. The minute you step into officer training school and the minute you step out of it, you're essentially being watched the entire time. The airmen below you, or the sailors below you, or the soldiers below you, they will be watching you as a leader. They want to see you succeed, and you need to act that way. You need to act confident, competent, and ready to go. Any questions on that? And military residency. So specifically for Air Force, 3 sites. At Wright-Patterson, I can only talk about Wright-Patterson. I don't really remember the other sites verbatim. But at Wright-Patterson, we have a total of 3 rotations. We have clinical neuropsychology. I think that ranges for approximately, I want to say 1 month, but it's intensive. So I think you're seeing a ton of patients each day in that month, and you're required to make a lot of integrated reports. And that's if you choose it. I think, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think it's a general rotation. And then you have clinical health psychology. My understanding that it's I believe a 6-month rotation, and then outpatient mental health rotation. That's another 6-month rotation. I'm currently in outpatient mental health, so I could talk about that a little further. We are expected to have 6 to 12 patients initially. So currently we just started seeing patients earlier this week. I began with 6 as of Monday, and then by Wednesday I have a total of 9 now. And then we are also expecting more throughout the next 2 weeks. So ultimately by the end of I think this month or next month, we should have approximately 20 patients year round. And these patients aren't necessarily, you won't be with them each, like for the entire year. They could rotate in or out, but you'll have approximately 20 of them. In addition to that, you're not necessarily meeting with every patient weekly. I think at my VA experience, I, for the most part, met with everyone weekly. Over here, it could be bi-weekly or even monthly. And it would be about 60-minute sessions. Intakes are approximately 90 minutes long. Some unique opportunities here at the military residency that I don't think VA settings have are on-call shifts. So there's a day shift or a night shift. Night shift is just between, I think it's 1700 to 0700, you're basically going to be glued to a phone. I haven't done it yet, but you'll get, crisis calls, and you're expected to either show up at the hospital or collect more information and triage it out if need be. And then another unique opportunity is the ability to work. I didn't write this down, but the ability to work with mental health technicians. These are airmen that have been trained from technical school with like preliminary mental health skills. So they know how to do an intake, for example, and they also help with assessment or actually conducting the intakes or scheduling, so forth. And I think it's a unique opportunity because you essentially step in a position as a resident. Mind you, we're still training as a student as well, but you step in training other people. I mean, think about the possibilities, putting that on your resume moving forward after your first assignment, right? That's going to look great on your resume, and also work experience. I think that's going to be second to none. You're already embodying being a leader as a resident. So that's pretty unique. And again, the competitive pay, I think it's definitely something to highlight there. I know some of my civilian counterparts have been waiting on student loans, for example, to just make ends meet, which I think the vast majority of people do, but at least with the military residency, they make it a priority to take care of you financially and your family. They continually ask whether or not you're getting paid on time, if everything is checking in. They ask you how your family is doing. So I think they really, I get the sense that they really care about me as a person and my family, not just us as a student, so to speak, even though they know we're only sticking around for 1 year. The likelihood of me running into them again is highly likely. So I think they make that investment twofold upfront. Any questions on this slide? And in conclusion, I wanted to talk about the last statement from the Airman's Creed. It reads, "And I will not fail." And, I wanted to trace this back into the why, right? So we began this presentation talking about why. I failed plenty of times. I failed securing HPSP for a number of branches. I failed at OTS, and this statement right here drove me crazy, "and I will not fail," because I was constantly reminded around me that all these other individuals are stellar. They're second to none. They are the top of every chain I could actually imagine. But I think what really stands out for me, and why I think I haven't failed, is because I keep on chasing my passion. I keep on reaching for that higher calling, and my dream to give back to those who inspired me has never let me down. And I think that's my why again, and that's why I've not failed, and I plan to keep on doing that. So I encourage everyone here to really ask yourself why you're interested in pursuing the path you're pursuing, because if you pursue a military residency, you're going to have incredible experiences or opportunities outside of it to live a fulfilling life. You could work at a VA, you could work at private practice and probably make a ton more. But there's something special working for the military. There's something special about the bonds and the camaraderie that you create with these individuals. And I don't think I'll trade anything for that. I think I belong here. And I'll conclude here. So I'll conclude my brief. If Nicholas, I'm going to ask you, would it be all right if we go offline and stop recording? I know we have a few minutes here. I want to open up an informal forum or discussion panel for any of the individuals here to ask. If that's fine with you, you let me know.
No, that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
Okay.